Everything Tommy Egan touches turns to fire. From the ashes of New York to the chaos of Chicago, his world is built on loyalty, revenge, and the constant pull of power. He's not just another player in the game, he is the game. And before his final war begins, we need to go back to where it all started. Tommy Egan was never meant to disappear quietly. When New York fell apart and Ghost, his brother, his partner, his only real family was gone, Tommy didn't just lose a friend. He lost a piece of himself. The streets that once bowed to him now whispered his name like a warning. Everyone thought he'd fade away, but Tommy doesn't fade. He moves, he burns, he rebuilds. And that's exactly what he did when he hit the road heading west to Chicago. Chicago wasn't just another city. It was a chance at a new empire. A fresh start in a place that didn't know his name, didn't owe him anything, and didn't fear him yet. Tommy arrived with nothing but a car, a gun, and that dangerous hunger to own everything again. The streets were already divided. The Flynn family, running their old-school Irish crime business, and the CBI, the black organization holding down the South Side. It was a city ready to explode. And Tommy was the spark that would light it up. At first, he tried to play it smart, lay low, learn the landscape, figure out who was running what. But Tommy was never built for the background. The moment he saw weakness in Chicago's power structure, he saw opportunity. He started connecting the dots. The Flynns had money but were stuck in old ways, while the CBI had the manpower but couldn't stay united. Tommy's mind started working like a chessboard, and every move brought him closer to being king again. He didn't come alone for long. Out of nowhere, a ghost from his past showed up, Liliana. She was supposed to be dead, a small-time hustler from his old New York days. But she survived, toughened up, and carved her own lane in Chicago's drug world. When Tommy saw her again, the past didn't matter. They understood each other, two survivors built from the same fire. Together, they became an unexpected team, taking on both the Flynns and the CBI. While staying 2 steps ahead of everyone trying to take them down, Tommy's first big move came with Dahlia, a new designer drug that could change the entire game. Unlike anything on the streets, it was pure, powerful, and addictive, the kind of product that could make a man untouchable. But Dahlia wasn't just a business. It was a war starter. Everyone wanted it, the Flynns, the CBI, even out-of-town dealers. Tommy didn't just sell it. He controlled it. And that made him a target. Every deal, every alliance, every fight in Chicago came with a cost. Tommy had to face more than just enemies. He had to face himself. Ghost's death still haunted him, the memories of everything they built and destroyed together playing in his head like an endless loop. He wasn't fighting for family anymore. He was fighting for his name, his legacy, and the only thing he truly understood, power. As the battles in Chicago got bloodier, Tommy learned something important. In this city, loyalty doesn't last, and every alliance ends in betrayal. He saw it firsthand. Diamond and Jennard, brothers in the CBI, started tearing each other apart. The Flynns, who were supposed to stand as one, were falling to pieces under the weight of greed and pride. And in the middle of it all, Tommy stood tall, watching them crumble, waiting for his moment to take the throne. But even kings bleed. And in Chicago, every win comes with a loss. The closer Tommy got to ruling, the more he lost friends, allies, trust. And when Liliana was taken from him, it wasn't just another death. It was a reminder that Tommy's world doesn't allow peace. Every time he reaches for something real, it slips through his hands, leaving only pain behind. By the end of his first season in Chicago, Tommy had turned the city upside down. The old bosses were falling, new enemies were rising, and the entire underworld was whispering one name, Tommy Egan. But behind that name was a man who'd lost too much to stop now. The streets of Chicago had found their new ruler, and the war for power had only just begun. Blood doesn't make you loyal, choices do. And in Chicago, every choice has a cost. By the time Tommy Egan stepped deeper into the city's criminal world, the line between friend and enemy was already blurred beyond repair. The city was a powder keg, divided by greed, pride, and fear, and Tommy was right in the center, holding the match. The war began not with bullets, but with betrayal. The once powerful CBI, led by the Sampson brothers, was breaking apart from the inside. Diamond wanted peace, a smarter, cleaner way to rule the streets. But Jennard, he wanted control, respect, and the crown. The moment Tommy started working with Diamond, Jennard took it as a declaration of war. And from that moment, Chicago turned into a battlefield where every move could be your last. Tommy's alliance with Diamond wasn't built on trust. It was built on necessity. Both men had scars, Diamond from prison, Tommy from New York, and both knew that survival meant cutting deals with people you couldn't stand. They started building their own lane, taking over territory one block at a time, while the rest of the city fought over the pieces left behind. But Tommy wasn't just taking over streets. He was reshaping the entire system, one calculated move at a time. Meanwhile, the Flynn family was crumbling. Claudia wanted power and independence, tired of living under her father Walter's control. She believed Dahlia could be her way out, a new empire built without the old man's rules. But Walter Flynn, blinded by pride and age, couldn't stand seeing his daughter outshine him. Their family dinners turned into work councils, and every conversation ended with blood in the air. The once mighty Irish family that ruled Chicago's north side was tearing itself apart, and Tommy saw the cracks. While the Flynns fought each other, Tommy made his move. He started cutting through their operations, using Dahlia to turn their soldiers against them. The drug became more than product, it became a weapon, a way to control loyalty. But success always attracts danger, and soon Tommy found himself facing not just street gangs, but something much bigger, the feds. Chicago's law enforcement had started noticing the new player in town. And every deal, every drop, was being watched. The pressure was building. Still, Tommy didn't back down. He never does. Instead, he doubled down, taking risks that made even Diamond question his sanity. He started setting traps for Jennard's crew, flipping soldiers, burning warehouses, and sending a message that there was only room for one boss in this city. The body count grew, alliances shifted, and Chicago's streets ran red again. But Tommy's greatest enemy wasn't Jennard, Walter, or the cops. It was himself. The ghosts from New York never stopped haunting him. He'd see Ghost's face in the mirror, hear his voice in the silence. Every time he made a move, he asked himself, would Ghost have done it better? Was he really building something, or just chasing a shadow? That guilt became fuel, pushing him harder, making him more ruthless than ever before. Through it all, Tommy's legend grew. The city started calling him the White Ghost, a man who appeared out of nowhere, struck like lightning, and vanished before you could blink. Fear turned into respect, and respect turned into power. The same streets that once doubted him now whispered his name like a warning. He was no longer an outsider. He was the man running Chicago from the shadows. But even kings can't stand alone forever. As Tommy's empire grew, so did the list of enemies waiting for revenge. Jennard wasn't done. Claudia wasn't finished. And the law wasn't backing down. Everyone wanted a piece of him, his product, his money, his head. And as the pressure built, Tommy faced the truth he'd been running from since day one. Power always demands a price. By the end of season 2, the city had changed. The old players were gone, and the new ones were just as dangerous. Tommy had everything he wanted: control, money, respect. But he'd lost almost everyone he cared about. The throne he fought for was built on bodies and betrayal, and he was sitting on it alone. Still, he didn't stop. He couldn't, because for Tommy Egan, power isn't just the goal. It's the addiction. It's the only thing that keeps him alive. And as Chicago burns around him, one thing becomes clear. The final season isn't about who wins the war. It's about who survives it. Power builds empires, but trust destroys them. By the time Tommy Egan's grip on Chicago grew strong, the people around him began to fall apart. The city wasn't just a battlefield anymore. It was a graveyard of broken loyalties, shattered promises, and ghosts that refused to stay buried. Every alliance Tommy built turned into a knife waiting to cut him from behind. And every friend became a reminder that, in his world, survival always comes before love. Tommy thought he'd learned every rule there was to know about the game. From New York to Chicago, he'd seen betrayal in every shape, from rivals, from partners, even from blood. But Chicago played different. This city wasn't about who was the toughest. It was about who could think 5 moves ahead while keeping their hands clean. And for the first time, Tommy had to admit he wasn't the only one who could play that game. Then there was Claudia Flynn, smart, dangerous, and tired of being underestimated. She had a mind like Tommy's, sharp, fearless, and unpredictable. For a moment, they almost understood each other. Both outcasts, both fighting to build something that was truly theirs. But in the game of power, similarities don't unite, they clash. Claudia wanted the empire for herself, and she wasn't afraid to spill blood for it. Her father, Walter Flynn, was crumbling, his empire dying, his mind poisoned by hatred and age. Chicago was slipping through his hands, and he blamed Tommy for every piece of it. It was chaos on every side. Every corner of the city had a new war brewing, and Tommy stood in the middle like a conductor leading an orchestra of destruction. Every move he made created another enemy, another fire, another death. But he couldn't stop, not when he was so close to having it all. To him, power wasn't just about money or respect anymore. It was about proving to himself that he could build something without Ghost, that he could stand on his own, even if it meant standing alone. But inside, Tommy was cracking. The ghosts were getting louder. Every night, he saw faces: Ghost, Liliana, his mother, everyone he'd lost because of this life. And no matter how much blood he spilled, no matter how high he climbed, that emptiness never left him. He started to realize the truth. He wasn't building an empire. He was running from himself. Chicago wasn't his second chance. It was his punishment. And yet, in the middle of that pain, there were moments of clarity. Tommy saw what real loyalty could look like: fleeting, rare, and fragile. Diamond, despite his flaws, showed Tommy that leadership doesn't always come from fear. It can come from respect. For a brief moment, Tommy almost saw a future, one where he didn't have to fight everyone, where he didn't have to be the villain. But the streets don't allow peace, and every dream comes with a nightmare attached. The violence only grew worse. Jenner's war against his brother tore through the South Side. Claudia's schemes turned the Flynns against each other. And while everyone else was fighting for control, the law was watching closely, ready to strike. The city was bleeding, and Tommy was holding the knife. But even as the walls closed in, he refused to run. Because Tommy Egan doesn't run. He fights. By the end of it, alliances were dust. Diamond lost his brother. The Flynns lost their empire. And Tommy, he lost another piece of himself. What was left was a man colder, harder, and more dangerous than ever. A man who finally understood that in his world, power is the only language that matters, and love is just a weakness waiting to be used against you. Now, Chicago belonged to him. But the price was everything he once cared about. The streets whispered his name with fear, but behind that fear was respect, the kind Tommy lived for. Still, when he looked around at what he'd built, there was no celebration, just silence. The kind of silence that feels heavier than any gunshot. And in that silence, Tommy realized something that would haunt him forever. Maybe he didn't come to Chicago to build an empire. Maybe he came here to destroy what was left of his soul. Every empire ends the same way, with betrayal, blood, and silence. Tommy Egan has ruled Chicago long enough to know that power never stays still. It shifts, twists, and devours the people who chase it. And now, as the final season looms, Tommy stands on the edge of everything he's fought for and everything he's destroyed to get here. The city is his, but so are the enemies, the ghosts, and the scars that never healed. Chicago doesn't belong to anyone for long. And Tommy knows it's only a matter of time before the streets demand payment. Tommy's empire has become a mirror of his own soul, fractured, unpredictable, and soaked in regret. He's built something unstoppable, but it's built on blood. Every deal, every alliance, every victory came at a cost. Liliana's death still echoes in his mind, the one person who stood by him when no one else would. Diamond's loyalty wavers under pressure, Jennard lurks in the shadows, and the remnants of the Flynn family are still plotting revenge. It's no longer about who controls the streets, it's about who can survive them. But Tommy isn't the same man who first arrived in Chicago. The reckless soldier who once fought for Ghost's legacy has turned into a general with his own war. He's learned how to think like a leader, cold, patient, strategic. Yet beneath that armor, the rage still burns. The difference now is that Tommy doesn't fight just to win. He fights because he doesn't know how to stop. Violence isn't his tool anymore. It's his language, his heartbeat, his curse. The city around him reflects that chaos. Chicago is splitting apart. Every gang, every alliance, every hustler trying to carve out a piece of what Tommy built. The feds are closing in, the streets are whispering rebellion, and bodies are piling up faster than money can clean them. Everyone's watching Tommy, waiting for the fall, because when a man climbs this high, there's only one way down. And the higher he goes, the lonelier it gets. But this final war isn't just against his enemies, it's against his past. Ghost's shadow still follows him, reminding him of everything he lost in New York. There's guilt buried beneath every word, every glance, every bullet fired. The man who once killed to protect his family now kills to feel alive. Somewhere deep down, Tommy knows that every time he pulls the trigger, he's aiming at the ghosts inside his own head. In the final stretch. The question isn't who will betray Tommy, it's who will remain standing beside him. Diamond, torn between doing what's right and doing what's necessary, is running out of patience. Jennard, unpredictable and vengeful, has nothing left to lose. Claudia Flynn, cunning and ambitious, wants to finish what her father couldn't, and amidst them all, Tommy stands as the one constant, the storm that never ends. The man who keeps coming back when everyone else falls. But there's something different this time. For the first time in his life, Tommy starts to think about what comes after. What happens when the war ends? When the guns are silent and the money means nothing? He's lost too many people to believe in peace, yet deep down, he still craves it. He still dreams of something that doesn't end in fire. Maybe it's redemption. Maybe it's death. Maybe it's both. As the streets prepare for one last reckoning, Tommy faces the truth he's been avoiding since the beginning. Power doesn't give you freedom, it cages you. The more he wins, the more he's trapped by the life he built. Every empire he's touched, from New York to Chicago, has crumbled under his hands. And now the final season will show whether he can finally break the cycle or die trying. The last season isn't about money, drugs, or even control anymore. It's about legacy. It's about a man who's lost everything but refuses to stop fighting. A man who knows the streets don't forgive, but still walks them with his head high. Tommy Egan doesn't ask for mercy. He doesn't beg for forgiveness. He takes what's his, even if it kills him. So as the city burns and alliances collapse, one thing is clear. This isn't just the end of a story. It's the end of a reign. The final war will decide not just who rules Chicago, but who survives it. And when the smoke clears, whether Tommy Egan stands tall or falls for good, one truth will remain: he changed the game forever. Because in the world of power, kings don't retire. They burn bright, brutal, and unforgettable.